Welcome to the Jackson Cloud. I'm Jamin.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Olivia.
And we are in Revelation 9. We just did an episode on this angel or spiritual being of sorts that's fallen from heaven to earth, is given the key of power to the bottomless pit and opens it, and locusts come out. We went the route of this being this more or less being Satan, since Satan is talked about as like falling from heaven to earth elsewhere in the Bible.
Because of a Disney movie?
No. But Olivia referenced a Disney movie. Other scholars occasionally do argue like, no, maybe this is like a good angel who has been like given the keys over the pit. And part of the reason you might argue that is because one of the thoughts in Jewish writing was that one day the Watchers that sinned against God by creating the giants in Genesis 6, that those spiritual beings that procreated with women and created the Nephilim and the giants and all these other giant clans, that before Jesus comes back for the ultimate day of judgment, the Jewish legend was that they would be unlocked from the abyss and be able to come out. So there also is like a thought that some would say like maybe that this angel right here is unlocking and letting out things, which means that the final days of judgment are coming, which is always confusing to us, because if you do go that route where it's like, no, that's not Satan, that's a good angel or something. If you were to go that route, then you would have to say that, it seems like the good side is unleashing bad stuff on the world, because those demonic locusts then go out and like destroy everything and hurt people. So then you're like, well, why would God want to do that to people? And that's where we get into
Unless it was trying to cleanse it so that he could then repopulate it.
Well, except they can't die. It's part of the locust things is they oppress people, and then they can't die after they're being oppressed. So
the locusts can't die, or the people they're oppressing can't die?
The people they're oppressing can't die. They wish they could die, but death flees from them. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work then. Because I was thinking it was like a flood 2.0, but instead of not using water, you use locusts instead.
Revelation is pictured in many ways as the ultimate flood, so you're not off on that. Many times when the Bible writers want to talk about the ultimate day of judgment, they reference days of judgment from the past. This is the ultimate Sodom and Gomorrah. This is the ultimate flood. This is the judgment of all judgments, if you will. So, yeah, you wouldn't be completely off on that perspective. But yeah, if you were to say it was a good one, then why is God doing something that causes people so much pain? This brings us to conversations we've already had before on our topic in Revelation, where God sometimes allows evil to run its course. He gives people over to the evil that they've been desiring. Instead of following him, they're following these other things, so God lets them have those other things, and then they experience the full weight of those other things. This is, in general, the way in which God often gets our attention, because pain gets our attention, right? I mean, that's C.S. Lewis, The Problem of Pain, and he talks in that about how pain is God's megaphone. Like it wakes us up. If I touch something hot, it burns me, like this blister I have right here from the firework I set off in my hand the other day, right? Like that right there, like the pain taught me, don't set off fireworks in your hand. And I learned from that, and now I know not to do that again.
Okay, Pierre Paul.
Well, as I've been doing a lot of deliverance ministry this year, here's one of the things I've learned when I think about the kind of ministry I've been doing. Demons are like spiritual sickness. It's spiritual pain. I know what not to do with my body because it hurts when I do it. But I don't always know what not to do with my spirit until the oppression of my spirit comes about and I recognize, oh, not forgiving people is bad for me. and this thing has now gotten into my life because I didn't forgive, and now I need to forgive in order to remove that sickness from me. So the pain, the spiritual pain, or in this case, a demonic entity, wakes me up to the fact that I have spiritual pain that I need to relieve myself of, or I will remain spiritually sick. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
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 So just like the body gets sick, so the spirit can get sick, and I think that in many ways is what you see with the locusts. Is that it doesn't even, didn't it say that it doesn't oppress the people who are who have
Right. It would before the locusts could come and harm people, the seal was put on Christians so that
right.
Christians couldn't be harmed, or God's people couldn't be harmed.
Yeah, they were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any green plant or any tree, but only those people who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. So, in this case, those who are opening themselves over to that pain because they're not following God and they're not trying to follow His ethics and His morals and His acts of forgiveness and things like that, open themselves up to this locust torment, which is probably best seen in Revelation as like a demonic torment of sorts. So, our last episode was all about what if the star unlocking the abyss was a bad guy or Satan, which I still think I lean that way. We could also throw the possibility like, is this like a good angel that's just been given power and authority over that? You could go that way. I still don't know that I'm convinced on that route, but I think the lesson still remains. Whether you see it as bad or good, those who are not going to give themselves over to the ethic of Jesus are going to find themselves oppressed by the demonic torment type thing, right? So regardless of which way you want to fight about it, you still have the same theme and moral. Were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. Our focus moving forward to the territory that we didn't get in the last episode is about the appearance of the locusts. Okay, so this is where people come up with some really obscure and strange stuff. And when it comes to these locusts, we're working off a passage from Joel. There's this prophecy of like a military victory over Israel, but like the opponents are kind of pictured as locusts. So Joel uses this prophecy that like it's the invading force is like locusts devouring your land. Okay. This is John's way. Throw it all in a blender.
I'm just picturing a bug's life with the grasshoppers like attacking in formation, and that's what when you said military and locusts, that's what I went to. So
Yeah, that's it. You know, I think somewhere in my head I think of those locusts as like the Locusts of Revelation. I never really thought about that. But they have the same kind of like evil. I need to watch.
Last episode was Hercules. This one's Bugs Life. Okay.
Revelation, Hercules, Revelation, A Bug's Life. Like we're just gonna every episode is gonna be a Pixar Disney movie. All right, so here's the way that the locusts are described, based off some of the work of Joel and John doing his classic "Throw It in a Blender" with his own thoughts and visions and other passages. In appearance, these locusts were like horses prepared for battle. We're thinking military, right? On their heads were what looked like crowns of gold. Thinking royalty or authority, right? Their faces were like human faces. Their hair was like women's hair. Their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron. The noise of their wings was like the noise of many chariots with horses running into battle. So, pretty creepy and vicious.
see, now I'm thinking like James and the Giant Peach with one of those bugs,
It has been a very long time.
like with the more of a human face. Is what I'm thinking.
Okay. Well, okay. So, anamorphosizing, is that a word? That's a word.
Sure.
Anamorphosizing demons is pretty commonplace throughout history, including the Watcher angels that could be the ones in the abyss here being unleashed. The Watcher angels sometimes get likened to being animal-like. Satan prowls like a roaring lion, right? The seraphim of heaven are snake-like. So angelic beings looking like animals, not entirely uncommon.
Right, but to have like the face of a person, the teeth of a lion, like
Well, even
How
in some of
big?
the, what was that?
How big are these locusts supposed to be?
Yeah, I mean, you have them being described like horses, so you kind of get
Yeah.
the feeling, right, that this is like a large.
if I saw that like
Yeah.
IRL, I would be terrified.
If you saw anything John says IRL, you would likely be terrified. Even when I'm doing deliverance with people, though, when I have them kind of go into a visionary state to try to meet with Jesus, and I call those demons to show up, they usually show up anamorphosized. So they've shown up as like dogs. They've shown up as like snakes. Shown up as other kind of creepy like figures. So the idea that demons would show up with a kind of like animalistic view is not. It's not unbiblical. It's not against what ancient people thought, and it's not against what I've seen people experientially come across in some of their stuff.
So what you're saying is dogs are demons sometimes.
No, I think what he's saying is demons are furries.
I like that one better.
This is taking an interesting turn. I'm not sure where to take it from there. Well, even some of those dogs, though, like that I've seen some people like work with, there were a few of them, and each of them had characteristics in their personality that you could tell which one was which. Just droopy ears or whatever that totally fit the thing when it manifested, acting all droopy. We're off topic again. What are we talking? Okay, so locusts anamorphosizing still makes sense that this could be demonic, but some people like to take what Revelation says in more of a metaphorical, historical approach, and we've entertained that on some of these things, right? Like in some of our last episodes, we talked about fire in such a sense where like that sounds like a volcano, right? And when we look at ancient times, sure enough, Mount Vesuvius erupting, everybody would have known about that. Could have been seen as a moment of judgment in ancient history that John's writing in as part of what happened. So we could say, since we are thinking of the locust already as like military conquest, since that's the way Joel used it, and people would have been used to military conquest, of course, even in John's time. One guy is going to take it the route and say that it's like it's the barbarians of John's time. He's going to say that because their crowns of gold could be like their unusually blonde hair, which was not super common back then, and it being long hair like women's hair, long-haired barbarians. All I have in my mind is He-Man or
Yep.
whatever,
Yeah, that makes
right?
sense.
That their teeth being like lion's teeth could be like imagery that they loved meat. For barbarians, they were actually thought of that way. So some scholars are going to take it and be like a literal history type thing. These are the barbarians. The barbarians being unleashed out of hell seems like a stretch to me.
But here's the real question: if they're unleashed from hell, did they rage first? That is the real question.
I don't know what we're quoting, but it's probably Dungeons and
D&D.
Dragons.
D&D.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that was right. Whatever the case is, we do have the military feeling. We have the demonic feeling. You could overlap these things, right? I mean, it would not be uncommon to think of war and all the things that it represents as being something demonic, and therefore the humans partnering with the demonic. It could go so many different routes, and that's part of the difficulty of John is you could just read it on so many levels. I don't think all those levels necessarily need to be wrong. I think sometimes God does speak in ways that are like triple entendres. Only God can pull that off as well as he does. But yeah, it's an interesting passage. We got like 2 more sentences. Anything before I wrap up?
Go.
They have tails and stings like scorpions, and the power to hurt people for 5 months is in their tails. We've already heard that. Oh, okay. Let's go the weirdo route really quick. I've given you some weirdo routes within scholarship. The weirdo routes of modern times are always like, oh, this is a helicopter. What?
The loud blades. Crowns?
Noise of many chariots. It's got the stinger in the back.
I mean, it would
Breastplates
have a
like
human
iron.
face because it would have a pilot.
Mhm. Yeah.
Teeth like lion.
I don't know. What about the horse thing, though?
Well, yeah, it's not going to fit perfectly because it's not about helicopters. But this is just another classic
Well,
example.
no, it's large enough. Like it's large enough to be like a horse. You get on top.
No,
of
it's
it,
too
ride
big
it.
to be a horse.
Right. So if we were to go this route, then we're saying John had a vision and was viewing the future of helicopters and trying to put into ancient words what he's looking at.
I think it would have been described a lot differently if he was trying to describe helicopters.
Right.
Surely he must have had better words to describe a helicopter than these.
You'd think so. But this is just a classic example of the way in which modern people will sometimes read ancient books. Clearly, only scripture we would read like this because we read it into our own context. So the helicopter locust paradigm will always be a great example of what we call in Bible study exegesis, which is like not exegesis is reading the Bible within its context. Exegesis is reading the Bible in your context and just letting all scripture go away. So
Gotcha.
I haven't said exegesis in so long. Am I saying that right?
That's a good word. I like that.
I don't know if that's actually a word. I've never heard it before. So
exegesis versus eisegesis. Yeah, sorry. What word did I just create a second ago? Exegesis. Eisegesis and exegesis. Exegesis is when you're studying it the right way within the context of its own text. Eisegesis. I only do exegesis, so I forget what the bad word is. Eisegesis is when you interpret a text in your own way to bring your own presuppositions, agendas, and biases. Okay.
The amount of words you've created the last 40 to 60 seconds is crazy.
Exegesis, good. Eisegesis. Eisegesis?
I
think it was eisegesis, yeah.
Other word bad. All right. Anyways, my point is, what was my point? Oh, yeah.
Helicopter's not good.
Yeah. No, that's just completely the bad word I said. They have, all right, back to our locusts. They have as king over them the angel of the bottomless pit. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek he is called Apollyon, which Abaddon means destruction, and Apollyon means destroyer. So John takes these Greek words, and which are usually, destruction is usually like a place you go to, but John takes it and assigns it as a name straight on to this angel of the bottomless pit, which could again be the angel that has the keys to the bottomless pit. You can argue about if that's really the case or not. But destruction just more or less, John just takes the word destruction and says, that's the name of the angel of death. That's the name of Satan, more or less. He is death. And you're going to see the Bible a lot of times use death as a being instead of like a thing that you do, right? Death, where is your sting? Like it's talking about it like it is a being that no longer has it. Sheol sometimes is personified as a beast itself. When Jonah gets thrown into the beast, thrown into the big fish. If you read Jonah closely, it's possible that big fish is supposed to just be like representative of Sheol. Like that thing is death itself. It's eaten up John, and it's eaten up Jonah, and Jonah comes back to life out of Sheol when he's vomited out of death back into life. That sounds weird, but it makes sense with Jesus when Jesus says, just like Jonah was in the belly of the whale or fish for 3 days, so will the Son of Man be. Jesus went into death and was vomited out of death, just like Jonah was. So, Sheol can be a being, and in this case, death and destruction and all that is put right on the being of Satan himself. Okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up? All right. The first woe is past. Behold, 2 woes are still to come. We'll get into those in our next episodes. But in the meantime,
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below.
And join us in the Discord because we'd love to see you there and chat with you and all of that.
or don't be a jerk, whatever.